Have you ever had a moment where everything suddenly became clear? Not because you discovered a secret or won the lottery, not because someone finally came to help you, but because you realized one simple, uncomfortable truth. Nobody is coming to save you. No perfect mentor is waiting around the corner. No wealthy relative is secretly planning to solve your financial problems. No miracle opportunity is guaranteed to arrive exactly when you need it most. At first, this realization can feel frightening. It can feel lonely. It can even feel unfair. But according to the ideas of the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung, this moment can become the beginning of genuine personal transformation. Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy deep conversations about psychology, philosophy, and the power of critical thinking, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Every week, we explore ideas that challenge the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Now imagine two people facing exactly the same challenge. They both lose their jobs on the same day. They have similar backgrounds, similar skills, and similar responsibilities. Yet one person spends the next year blaming the economy, complaining about unfairness, and waiting for someone to offer them a better opportunity. The other spends the same year learning new skills, building connections, adapting to change, and creating opportunities where none existed before. What made the difference? It wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. It was the way they thought. Most people live with an invisible habit they rarely notice. They are waiting. Waiting for motivation before they begin. Waiting for confidence before they speak. Waiting for the perfect conditions before taking action. Waiting for someone to believe in them before believing in themselves. Without realizing it, they hand control of their lives to circumstances outside their control. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Months become years. And eventually they wonder why nothing changed. Carl Jung believed that much of human suffering comes from avoiding responsibility for our own psychological development. He observed that people often project their problems onto other people or external situations instead of confronting what exists within themselves. It's much easier to blame society than to question our own habits. It's much easier to blame bad luck than to admit we never prepared. It's much easier to blame other people than to recognize our own fears. Jung wasn't saying that external problems don't exist. Poverty exists. Discrimination exists. Tragedy exists. Life can be genuinely difficult. But he argued that growth begins when we stop asking, who should fix my life? And start asking, what can I do with the life I have? That single question changes everything. Picture yourself standing at the bottom of a massive mountain. The climb looks impossible, so you keep looking behind you, expecting someone stronger, smarter, or more experienced to arrive and carry you to the top. Minutes pass, hours pass, days pass, no one comes. Then something remarkable happens. You stop looking behind you, you look up, you tighten your shoes, and you take your first step. The mountain hasn't become smaller, but your mindset has become stronger. This is where deep thinking becomes one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. Most people react. Very few people reflect. Reaction says, life is unfair. Reflection asks, given this reality, what is my best possible move? Reaction searches for excuses. Reflection searches for solutions. Reaction complains about problems. Reflection studies problems until it discovers opportunities hidden inside them. The quality of your future often depends less on the events that happen to you and more on the questions you ask yourself after those events occur. History repeatedly shows that extraordinary achievements begin with extraordinary thinking. Before every great invention, someone questioned what everyone else accepted. Before every major business success, someone imagined possibilities others couldn't see. Before every personal transformation, someone decided to challenge their own assumptions. Thinking deeply is not about overthinking every decision. It is about refusing to live on autopilot. It is about becoming conscious of your habits, your beliefs, and your excuses. One of the most misunderstood ideas about responsibility is that it means accepting blame for everything. But responsibility and blame are not the same thing. You may not be responsible for the family you were born into. You may not be responsible for losing your job. You may not be responsible for an illness or an economic crisis, but you are responsible for deciding what happens next. And that responsibility is not a burden. It is freedom. Because if your future depends entirely on someone else changing, then you have very little power. But if your future depends on your own choices, your learning, your discipline, and your thinking, then your possibilities become almost limitless. The human mind, however, prefers comfort over growth. It whispers familiar excuses. I'll start next month. I need more money first. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough experience. Someone else can do it better. These excuses feel safe because they protect us from failure, but they also protect us from success. Deep thinking requires honesty. It asks uncomfortable questions. Am I really too busy, or am I wasting my time? Am I truly incapable, or am I afraid of trying? Am I waiting for the right moment, or am I using perfection as an excuse to avoid action? These questions can be painful, but they also reveal the truth. Carl Jung introduced one of psychology's most influential concepts, the shadow. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge. It contains our fears, insecurities, jealousy, selfishness, laziness, anger, and hidden motivations. When we refuse to recognize these parts, they continue influencing our behavior from the background. We tell ourselves stories. I'm unlucky. I never get opportunities. People like me don't succeed. But sometimes those stories are simply masks covering deeper fears of rejection, failure, or responsibility. Jung believed that becoming aware of our shadow allows us to reclaim control over our own lives. The more honestly we examine ourselves, the less control our unconscious fears have over us. Think about nearly every successful person you've ever admired. At some point, they faced the realization that nobody was coming. No investor, no sponsor, no mentor, no miracle. Many started with very little: a borrowed laptop, a small apartment, a used camera, an old notebook, an internet connection, or simply an idea they refused to abandon. What separated them from countless others wasn't perfect circumstances. It was the decision to stop waiting. It was the willingness to think independently and act consistently. Perhaps one of the simplest habits that strengthens this mindset is daily reflection. Before going to sleep each night, ask yourself 5 questions. What problem did I solve today? What excuse did I make today? What lesson did I learn today? What did I avoid because of fear? What one action will make tomorrow better than today? Over time, these questions train your brain to become an active participant in your own life, instead of a passive observer. You stop drifting. You start directing. You stop reacting. You start creating. The day you realize nobody is coming may feel like the end of comfort, but it can also become the beginning of freedom. Because from that moment onward, every book you read, every skill you learn, every discipline you build, every difficult conversation you have, and every thoughtful decision you make becomes another investment in yourself. Instead of waiting for rescue, you become capable of solving your own problems. Instead of expecting others to create your future, you begin creating it yourself. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson Carl Jung leaves us with. The greatest battle is not against the world. It is against the unconscious habits, fears, and illusions within our own minds. When we learn to think deeply, we begin to see those hidden patterns. When we see them, we can change them. And when we change them, we change our lives. So remember this the next time you feel stuck. The day you realize nobody is coming is not the day hope disappears. It is the day you discover that the person with the greatest power to transform your life has been with you all along. It is the person looking back at you in the mirror. Thank you for watching. If this message made you think differently, consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. And before you leave, ask yourself one final question. If no one is coming to save me, what meaningful action can I take today that my future self will thank me for?